Welcome to the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast with psychologist Dr. Doreen Downing. Listen in as Doreen interviews people who felt they didn't have a voice or who suffered extreme speaking anxiety. You'll hear stories about how they struggled to speak up, what they did to find their authentic voice, and the confidence they now feel to speak up and make an impact. If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. And now, here is Doreen.
Hi, this is Dr. Doreen Downing, and I'm host of the Find Your Voice, Change Your Life podcast. What I do here is I get to delight in meeting new people who have stories. And today's guest, Gail, is a new friend of mine, and I've been on her podcast, and I just know that our conversation is so in the moment. And so that's what I think you could look forward to today, is just being on the journey in the now as we dance in the moment with the topic of finding your voice. Hi, Gail.
Hey, Doreen, I love that you just said the word dance. I just recently started contemplating and posting about dancing with your demon.
Yeah, well, you and I always seem to have these deeper kind of synchronistic moments, and that feels like, I didn't know how I was going to introduce you, but I do have a bio, so I think it would be good if I did read that.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, and then people really get a more concrete sense of how wonderful you are. Yes. Gail Kraft, keynote speaker, podcaster, empowerment master, and author of The Empowering Process. And isn't that the name of your podcast that I was on? Empowering
Absolutely.
Process. Yep. Yeah. So we'll make sure and get that out to listeners, that episode. You're a thought leader that works with clients and runs programs offering various approaches for accessing self-awareness, focus, and emotional balance in order to tap into the natural flow for success. I have to just take a big breath. I like that phrase, the natural flow. Then I think people work so hard to find success, but if we think about it as a natural flow for success. Thank you, Gail, for writing that. Crafting the flow formula. Oh, that's how you do it. Crafting the flow formula is how you gain higher self-awareness, create smarter goals, and lower stress, and making conscious choices and taking control of your life today. Why not today?
Why not today? Why
Yeah.
not? Why not? And that word control is like an oxymoron, if you will, because it's not control. It's allowing. More so than control, right? Allowing yourself to show up, allowing yourself to listen to that inner child. So we're going to talk about voices. Who knows what voices we're going to talk about? But we can start with my voice as the child. We kind of talked about this a little bit beforehand, and I was definitely one of those children who did not speak up. I actually went through a series of abandonment in my life. My mom tried to abort me in vitro. She died before I was 3. I heard stories from my father while he was trying to woo and date someone about what a burden I was. So I repeatedly through my life heard that I wasn't worthy to be here. And so I started to become such a people pleaser. I would do whatever it took and zip this muff, right, to make someone happy. And, that meant bad choices in my life, bad marriages, right? And then I found my voice completely by accident.
And I'm going to pause right there. And that's going to have people say, by accident. So until we get to that point, I'd like to go back and fan out more of what you've already presented so that people can relate to a little girl who is ready to pop out in the world, but feels already unwelcomed. And if we think that people, our little babies inside of bellies can feel and sense and think, which of course I think you and I do believe, you're picking up already this is not a welcoming universe I'm about to enter.
Right.
But
Right. In
but you
vitro.
did.
In vitro. I'm like, what's going on?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
But for me, listening to you and knowing some of the details, if you could just give just a little bit more to fan out the what people might call the pain of it, so that there's a sense of, oh, okay, they can relate to it. And if you could just
Sure. Well,
see where you go with that.
oh, there's so many. So I think I'll share the nightmares that I had until I shut them down. And so my mom passed when I was 3. And I am from the inner city of Boston. And when you're from the inner city, you take the public transportation. So I had a dream of going to the local train station with my mom. And the train came and I went on the train and turned around and my mom was still on the platform and the doors closed. Now, I only knew how to get to downtown Boston and turn around and come back. So I couldn't get off the train until I got to a station I knew. So imagine each station that I come to and the stress that I was feeling, that I can't get off yet, I can't get off yet, I can't get off yet. And then the train going back and being in the tunnel and the darkness of being in a train tunnel and the lights going, all of that was in my dream. And when the doors opened, my mom is gone. And that was my experience when she passed. She went to work and died there. So I saw her leave the house and never come back. Right. I had this nightmare and never shared it with my family, by the way, because no, don't cause any waves in the family. Let's keep the peace. That was my job, to keep the peace. And at the age of 13, I had a confrontation with my father. And that's a whole other story. And in that confrontation, I made a decision to shut down. I shut down the dream, to shut down, and I joined a gang. I found my family in a gang.
A gang. Ooh, tell us more.
Well, in those days, what the boys did, the ladies paid no attention to. All we knew is that, we would go, we had a certain place where we would hang out. And, when the police came, we took off. And then when the police left, we came back. Right. And we would, just, that was family, that was protection. And I'll give you another example. The boys would walk you home. And one night, Junior was walking me home and we bumped into his brother, John's. I remember them so clearly. Right. And John was with someone else. And John says, we got to get home, Junior. Mom's going to kill us. It's getting too late right now. He'll make sure she gets home. Well, he didn't. Right. He dragged me in an alley and he tried to rape me, choke me. There's a whole story again there. How I got saved was ridiculous. God saved me. And that's a whole story of how that happened. But the very next day, the gang found out. And I never saw that boy again. The gang's job was to protect us. Right. And I'm sure that John and Junior got an earful about not making sure that I was safe. So as much as it happened within the gang, that was home. That was safety. And I needed that because I didn't have it growing up.
Well, that what you just said about not having it, but then discovering it in an environment that may not have been the healthiest one for you to grow, but the need that we have inside to be loved, protected, part of, belonging, I guess is another word I would say, that you belong
Right.
there. And
Right. And so at the age of 16, I left my father and moved in with my brother and his family, who lived in the suburbs. And when I moved in, there were 2 rules. See that woman there? You upset her, you're out. Okay. And that gang that you belong to, that's done. And so that saved me.
Hmm.
That really did save me, because I now was in the suburbs. I was, single family homes where people had cars. Very rarely did they take public transportation, right? And I learned about family from my brother and my sister-in-law in a different way.
Oh, that sounds actually beautiful.
Right. It was healing. It
Uh-huh.
was my first step towards healing. But it also made me curious and hungry for what they had. And I had no idea how unhealthy their relationship really was.
Uh-huh.
Because understand, he came from the same unhealthy environment I came from. He had a gang that he hung around with as well.
Mhm.
Right. So again, it didn't help me make good choices at the time.
Well, I'm looking forward to hearing more about this accident, but before we do, I'm going to take a quick break to help listeners figure out how they can find more resources if they are still struggling to find their voice. Be with you just a moment.
If you want to get started right away to find your voice, download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com.
Oh, we're now back with Gail Kraft, and I'm so excited. And earlier in the episode, Gail, you mentioned about finding your voice, and you did it by accident. I am so curious. I'm opening up the the floor here now to learn what that was.
Oh, so one of the things that the abandoned child wants is to please. So in corporate, in business, when you please, when you succeed, you get rewarded. You get a raise, you get recognition, you get awards. So I was flourishing in corporate, and I became a leader very quickly. Even without a college degree, I was leading a team. Yeah, so it was the whole. I have so many stories, and I ended up working for a large organization, and I was managing the internal training department, and my boss managed the external. And so the point was that we were always in sync. What we're saying inside, we were also saying outside. And she had all of the big guys from around the country in, and one of her trainers didn't show up. And she came up to me and said, "You're getting on stage and presenting." And I said, "No, no, no, no. I'm a manager. You hired me because I'm a manager and not a speaker. I can't do this." And she said, "You have to." And so I'm like, okay, so there's a phrase I use called "put your big girl panties on and go do it," right? Just go do it. And so I did. And what I found after the first 5 minutes of the sweat and the, pouring off my face and my armpits and God knows whatever else, I got into a flow. I got into a rhythm, and I had a blast. So my first public speaking was in that moment. And I realized that what I had to say, it happened in corporate purely by accident, made a difference in the people's lives that I was speaking to. And that became very powerful for me moving forward.
Well, I get that life had something in mind for you, and it feels like a knock knock on the door to say, whether you're ready or not, my dear, you've going to step forward. It's your choice, move or not. And I think that this lesson that you're talking about, and hopefully listeners are getting it, is that when opportunity knocks like that, as scary as it is, and as much sweat as you're gonna, have, that you need to move into and take that step. Because in your story, my goodness, you realized and found your voice, the flow of a natural sense of where you could express yourself. And not only express, but it had impact.
It had impact. Exactly. And I and I was a natural. I mean, I was moving, walking back and forth. I was handing out prizes when someone answered a question. Hey, who knows this stuff?
Uh-huh.
Right? Who knows this stuff?
Uh-huh.
And the good thing is shortly after that, I'll give another story. I had someone who worked for me not show up. There was a snowstorm and she just couldn't make it in. And the subject that she was teaching, I had no idea about. But we have this thing called the trainer's manual that I had my team create. So I grabbed the trainer's manual, went into the classroom, sat on the desk in front of everybody, didn't even get up to the board, opened the book and said, okay, we're going to learn this together. Are you ready? And when you're in a situation, I mean, how bad can it be when you're presenting something you know nothing about? Be honest. And that's the flow of it all, is just be raw and real. And everyone was like, yeah, let's do this thing. It was
Mm-hmm.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Raw and real. Those
Yeah.
are inspirational words. And I know that people listening are going to go, oh, that's so scary. Say something a little bit more that can propel people to be raw and honest and take that step.
Well,
What,
it
what
is
kind?
scary. It is scary. And because our ego doesn't want us to be in an exposed situation, right? And so it's trying to protect us, while our soul, if you will, our it's like, that would be so much fun, that would be so exciting, right? It's, look at you, it's like a little girl,
Yeah.
right, that's coming out to play. And I think that is one of my cornerstones. Is I look at, even when I was in corporate, guys, lighten up, this is a game.
Mhm.
You think it matters that you gave me a deadline of December 29th and I don't make it? Like, will the world come to an end? Will someone die? It matters because you said it matters, and you are not that important. It'll get done when we're able to. Corporate doesn't like to hear that, but it's true. You do what you can and have fun at it. I'm telling you, because I have to have another story for you. I was leading this major project. We had to bring systems down. There was lots of risk. And I was really riding the technical team to keep that in order and for risk management plans, which, nothing will go wrong. Well, yes, it did. And we had the plans, and it was an awesome implementation because of that. Now I have a team of folks who are not very happy with me that I'm going to have to work with again. What did I do in order to maintain flow? Took them out to dinner, gave them their bonuses, and then I took them to laser tag so they could kill me. And they did. But it released that tension. We played. Okay, do you see the theme here?
Yes.
How do you get into flow? You play,
Yes.
have fun, lighten
Uh-huh.
up the load. And
Oh,
so if something scary is in front of you, think of it like, if you're one who rides the roller coaster, it's a roller coaster ride. The first time you went on that thing, how frightened were you? And how exciting was it when you finally went down that first hill? It's
yeah.
just a game, and it's fun.
Yeah, that reminds me of an experience I had in San Francisco at the Exploratorium. And there was something called the pleasure tunnel that you would, it was very narrow and it was dark, and you would have, I guess, tactile experiences as you move through the tunnel. And I have claustrophobia and I was terrified, but I did I did what you're talking about, was just to enter into it, to explore. And when I came out the other end, I went, wee, that was so much fun. I want to do that again. But it's that first stepping into the scary that we have to remember to do. And before we're getting near the end, darn it. But I want to, you said something, and I just want to open it up, because there's two things that I think that you offer that are so enriching for people. And that's, you mentioned something about soul and you mentioned something about flow. before we end, just see what comes up about how those two, what you want to say about that to us.
So, flow is the state that you allow yourself to get into by releasing ego. And that's what I said, play, it absolutely does that. And when a team, especially leader, gets into flow and a team gets into flow, when they get into flow, that is their absolute most creative. Their things just come. I had a team that we would go to lunch once a month, play a game. Hello, see a theme there. Play a game. And then we would problem solve. And I would have to record the session because the ideas came so quickly, we couldn't journal them down because they were in flow. And when you're in flow, if you've ever been, yes, and we could take that and we could do that. Yes, and then we could do this. How exciting. Right? Yes.
Yes.
And I can feel the energy, So flow is either very calm and time either goes very quickly or slows down. Slows down. The Navy SEALs, they pay millions of dollars to find one person to join the team who can get into flow. Because when they are on maneuvers, there is no leader. There is a team, one entity, and they move as one.
Oh, I get that. I get that idea.
Yeah.
Well, one more question, and that's see what comes up when I give you the topic, the voice of the soul.
Oh, that's the child.
Oh,
that's the child. And so recently, I've been putting out there that your inner child is not injured. The pain and the suffering and the anguish that we carry, like this abandonment issue, that child wasn't injured. That pain is on top of the child. And that child is hidden underneath it. So when you release all of that, you get to play and communicate. Listen, that's the wisdom of a child, the wisdom of a 5-year-old, the questions that they ask, their perspective, the things that they come up with. Why would you bury that? Let it out.
Well, that sounds like a really beautiful way to end today, is let it out. And the way that you said it is, such an invitation to a new way of being that we don't usually think, because we're working hard to be successful. And what you talk about is the flow, the natural flow to success.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. How do people find you, Gail?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Facebook. That really is the best way to find me. So it's Gail, Kraft, Gail Kraft, Gail Kraft. On Facebook, it's Gail Kraft 77, and on LinkedIn, it's Gail Kraft. And connect with me there. Tell me this is where you heard me, because otherwise, if I don't know you, I'm not accepting a friendship. But if you heard me on this podcast with Doreen, absolutely, I will accept your friendship.
That's a good way to also teach people that we need to discriminate and not just on social media be doing relationships that aren't really deep and meaningful, and have some significance in our own life. So thank you for being significant in my life, Gail.
Oh, Doreen, this has been amazing. Meeting you has been such a gift. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us today for this episode of Find Your Voice, Change Your Life. Each person Doreen interviews shares what has helped them find their voice. You can learn from these guests and find your voice so you can be confident to speak up and speak out. And remember to download Doreen's free 7-step guide to fearless speaking at doreen7steps.com. We hope you enjoyed the show and will return next time. Until then, goodbye for now.